Hi, LinkedIners. As promised in the last review of the book The Emerging Leader by Mike Cameron, I promised that I will have an interview with him and I will ask some questions, both that I received from social media and also some questions that I had myself in relation with the book and in general with the current business environment. The good news is that I had the interview. The bad news is the interview, it was about 1 hour long, and on LinkedIn I can't put it. So I preferred not to put it in a raw state. So I split it in some episodes, and each episode it will actually have a question that I put Mike Cameron. So without further ado, this is the first question, and for the first episode. And the question was around what kind of transformation journey the leadership of a company had to perform in the last 18 months and also in the current business environment. It's a question that relates in general to a transformational path, which comes from the degree of knowledge that is followed by behavioral change, and it reflects in our attitudes and values. I hope you will find this interesting, and also as last time, don't be afraid to put some questions in our comment, and if you need any kind of different information and in regards with any leadership questions, please don't be afraid to use the comments. So without further ado, here it is, Mike Cameron.
I think the important thing in any really important challenge, difficult times, particularly when you have no ability to impact on what is creating the problem. And in the case of the pandemic, it's the government and the health departments that lock you up and make certain that there are restrictions to what you can do. But like any difficult situation, the most important thing for management, and by management, I'm talking about the range of management, is to actually look at the opportunities that gives you. Because ultimately you can't do what you were doing before. Some businesses can, but very few businesses are not going to have felt some significant impact by this pandemic. And so the first thing I always go to in any time when you're going through change, there are three very simple things. The first is, where are we now? Where are we now? What are we actually doing? What's the business all about? Secondly, where do we want to go? And that really is the one part of that whole question that you need to open up to all the various teams, because no one person, and particularly in management at that high level, yes, they'll understand money and they'll understand what they've got to do in terms of their stakeholders. But ultimately, this is where you get the thinking caps on. You look at innovation. Where do we want to go? What's the business all about? Where are we almost at the end of a product cycle or a service cycle? Is it the ideal time to reinvent ourselves, to do a different business even, to look at different technology? A lot of the things that are being talked about in this last 18 months have come from people being forced to think about, where do I want to go if we're going to survive in the future? And so the last one of those questions is, how do we get there? Now, in the book, way back early in the book on page 9, I refer to what I call, and it's on the back of the book, but on page 9 it refers to transformational leadership.
Yeah.
And transformational leadership comes about through 4 specific styles of learning, if you like, or learning that you need to have. The first one is you have to have a degree of knowledge. But knowledge can be taught. That's content. You reading that book, you'll have more knowledge at the end of it than you had at the beginning.
Correct, yeah.
And that is purely transactional. It's transactional learning. You can teach anyone if they're willing to learn various things. The second thing is, from that learning, what does it do to your behavior? What do you take on board? And in LMA, we used to spend a lot of time talking about behavioral change that creates change in attitude. And again, all of that is transactional. Then you go to the next things, which is what is transformational. And the first is that attitude that you got through learning and study and process now becomes about me, the person. I've changed my attitude. I'm a different person. Instead of it being all about me telling you what to do as a manager, I start asking you. I talk about an outcome I'd like to achieve and say, how are we going to get there? I'm brave enough. I show courage. I don't need to be the leader. I just need to be the person creating the vision and the direction in which we want to go. And at times to accept it's going to get challenged, and for me to give them the ability to feel safe. That's one of my core commitments as a manager, is to keep people safe and feeling that the business isn't going to go downhill because of inappropriate behavior or so on. And the very last thing of those four in transformational management is my values. And my values should align with what I say and what I do, and how I encourage people who work for me to, if you like, judge me on, do I walk my talk? Okay. So I'll just very quickly, if I may, Edward, the one thing that I think is really important for people. There are 6 little things that transformational leaders do. They build trust, and they act out of integrity and adhere to their values. That's key. The second thing is they have a clear vision and set realistic and achievable goals.
The smart goals.
They create a sense of purpose, and they align that purpose with what people can do as a job. 2 more to go. They understand the necessity for change. Now, in today's pandemic, we've got to change.
It was pretty much forced upon us,
Yeah. And they inspire others through effective communication. And they're obviously totally passionate about the role they have as a leader.
I hope you enjoyed the first episode, and remember, the best thing that you can do if you find information that is worth sharing, just share it. Share it in your network, and you will help your network. I also have a link for the book in the comments below. So as told before, please don't be afraid to comment and share to your network. Thanks. See you in the next episode.